I grew up in Beeville, Texas, a small town where Main Street has a single blinking traffic light, and weekends are spent at the local diner. Nothing much ever happened there, which might explain why, when my boyfriend Jack suggested a late-night drive one summer, I jumped at the chance. It was me, Jack, and our two friends, Amy and Mike. We were all restless, that unique kind of boredom that only small-town teenagers understand. The streets were empty, shadows stretched long and eerie under the streetlights. We rolled the windows down, letting the warm breeze carry the scent of dried grass and asphalt. As the glow of downtown faded behind us, Jack brought up an old cemetery he'd heard about from his uncle, a graveyard from the 1800s, abandoned and rumored to be haunted. We scoffed at first, but with nothing better to do, we agreed to check it out. The road turned to dirt, the headlights struggling against the pitch darkness. Trees loomed on either side, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The silence was suffocating, no wind, no crickets, just the low rumble of the car's engine. My stomach twisted with unease, but I forced a laugh, trying to keep things light. When we reached the cemetery, the gate was a rusted relic, sagging under its own weight. It groaned as we pushed it open, a sound that sent chills racing down my spine. Fog clung to the ground, swirling around crooked tombstones whose engravings had been worn smooth by time. The air was heavy, damp, carrying a faint metallic scent that made my skin prickle. As we moved cautiously between the graves, Mike cracked a joke about grave robbers, but his voice wavered. No one laughed. I glanced over my shoulder repeatedly, half expecting to see someone, or something, watching us. The path twisted through the graves, and the further we went, the more oppressive the air felt, pressing down on us like a weight. Then Amy stopped abruptly, her eyes fixed on something ahead. Following her gaze, I saw them, 4 figures in white robes, their movements slow and synchronized, as if performing a ritual. The moonlight caught them just enough to outline their shapes. They moved in a circle around a grave, heads bowed. My breath itched, heart hammering in my chest. We stood frozen, the silence so thick I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Jack's hand found mine, cold and trembling, and he gave a slight tug, his eyes wide with fear. He mouthed, "Let's go." We moved slowly at first, each step a battle against the urge to run, until Jack couldn't take it anymore and bolted. The dash to the car was a blur. Jack fumbled the keys, hands shaking so badly he dropped them once. When the engine roared to life, the headlights flared, casting a brief spotlight on the robed figures. In that split second, I saw one of them turn, saw the flash of a pale face beneath the hood. Its eyes met mine, empty and dark, a sight that haunts my dreams to this day. We sped down the dirt road, gravel spraying behind us, and didn't stop until we reached the safety of a well-lit street. No one spoke for a long time, the silence heavy with the weight of what we'd seen. To this day, we don't talk about it much. Whatever we witnessed in that cemetery, it wasn't meant for us. Late one summer night, I was driving along US Highway 59 in Texas with my 2 kids, Elena and Mateo. We'd spent the day visiting a friend in Wharton, and though I'd hoped to be home before dark, time got away from me. The kids had been bickering for most of the ride, voices rising and falling in waves until my patience wore thin. Frustrated, I pulled over, flipping on the hazard lights. The night was quiet, almost oppressively so, and the headlights cut through the darkness with a stark, unnatural glare. As I turned to scold the kids, a pair of headlights appeared behind us, slowing until a car pulled alongside mine. The couple inside looked normal enough. The man leaned out, a polite smile on his face, and asked if everything was all right. I explained quickly, just wrangling my kids, and his smile widened. His wife leaned over, her expression almost too friendly, and said, "There's a bad wreck over the next hill. Traffic backed up for miles. You might want to take a side road about a mile back." Grateful but hesitant, I thanked them and watched as they drove off. The idea of a dark, unfamiliar road with 2 tired kids in the back didn't sit right. I decided to stay on the main route. But when I crested the hill, the road was empty, no wreck, no traffic, just open asphalt stretching into darkness. That's when I saw their car again, parked on a dirt path just off the road. The couple stood side by side, facing the trees, perfectly still. My pulse quickened, a deep-rooted instinct urging me to keep driving. I pressed the gas a little harder, eyes fixed on the road ahead, refusing to look back. The next day, curiosity gnawed at me. I retraced the route in daylight and found the turnoff. A faded yellow sign read "Dead End." My stomach twisted with unease. Why would they want me to take a road that led nowhere? I pulled away quickly, the memory of their two wide smiles sending chills down my spine. August 22, 2022. I was driving back to campus. Along Highway 26, in Oregon after a weekend with family. The highway stretched into darkness, the faint glow of a waning moon, barely lighting the way. I was running on fumes, the gas gauge dipping dangerously close to empty. When the car sputtered and died, I managed to pull over, cursing my luck. My phone had no signal, leaving me alone on a deserted stretch of road flanked by dense woods. I locked the doors out of instinct, eyes darting nervously between the shadows. Time crawled by, the silence deafening. I was just beginning to consider walking when a movement caught my eyes. A man stepped out of the woods, tall and thin, his clothes stained and worn. His eyes were wild, glinting in the moonlight, and my pulse stuttered. He knocked gently on the window at first, then more insistently when I didn't respond. I could barely make out his words, but he kept saying his name was Harvey and that he needed help. Something about the way he spoke, fast, desperate, set every instinct on edge. I gripped the steering wheel, praying for headlights, for anyone else to drive by. Just as panic was about to take over, lights bloomed in the rearview mirror, a police cruiser. Relief flooded me as two officers stepped out, flashlights cutting through the dark. The man backed away, hands twitching at his sides. When the officers called out, he hesitated only a second before bolting back into the trees. They offered me a ride to the nearest town, and I accepted without hesitation. As we pulled away, I stared into the woods, the branches swaying softly. Harvey was gone, leaving only questions and a lingering chill that took hours to fade.